every time you come in here. And, I'm always looking forward to, hearing from you. And by the way, I don't know why you and Fisayo, every time Fisayo has to, take a session, you're almost like the one, moderating the session. Anyway, good morning, House of Saviours. Good afternoon, wherever you join us from, and good evening and good night. Or what do we call it now if you're in Australia? Because it's like 12 a.m. in Australia. And I noticed that, so I didn't know that we have people join from Australia. Thank you very much for showing up once again. And thank you very much for believing in the vision. We have said it consistently. You guys are saviors. You are solution providers. Everywhere you go, you don't bow your head. No matter the stories they're telling you, you need to know the DNA that resides inside of you and activate it. Don't listen to any funny story. You go to this country, you can't make it here. You need to start from here, blah, 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 combine 5 jobs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me. But please don't listen to funny stories that don't empower you and doesn't speak to your strength. I want to appreciate our economic team. They're working around the clock, especially the ones in Nigeria. And I appreciate their leadership. They are about setting up our cooperative. And, if you're not a member, the membership process is very clear. I'm excited. I'm excited about the leadership of the economic team. They're working around the clock behind the scene because we believe in Commonwealth and we believe everyone here, if you're a solution provider, in a number of years, you don't have to bother about money, what to wear, what to eat, what to house rent. House rent should not be a prayer point here. If you have been here for like 3, 4, 5, maximum of 5 years, nobody here should be praying, trusting God for house rent. No, it should be something that comes naturally, to us, right? And that's what I believe, and that's where we need to get to. Some things are prayer point because of irresponsibility of the government, but we need to beat that and become our own government, basically. So today, I'm not speaking. I have my brother in the house, if you know. When you see me, you see him. When you see him, you see me. We are always almost on every project together. If I'm doing something with someone, he knows about it. If he's doing something, I know about it. If I need someone to bail me out, I quickly run to him and say, hey, put this together, and he does it. He never says no. We've been friends for years, and when all we had were dreams, and we were talking about this day, we have done some crazy projects together. It will interest you to know, before House of Saviours, there was numero uno, where we met with people every Friday. We paid for the all, we facilitated the session just to position people because we were tired. We noticed that prayer houses were opening faster than business meetings in Lagos State, and we decided to do that. And we used to say that someday we're all going to be very, very busy. We won't have time. And today, maybe we see once or twice a year. And we always say that sometimes we'll be just at the lounge at the airport and we'll say bye-bye. All those things are coming to pass. We're taking nations, taking territories, and I'm excited to have him in the house today. You all know him. Fisayo Okunsanya is in the building, and we are having the final session on limitlessness for the month of January. By February, we're starting a series called Rules of Engagement. I know he's going to be again in the house to teach us because if you don't know the rules of engagement, you will just be in a sector and they will say, oh yeah, fast and pray, and you fast and pray, you don't know the rules. You just realize that the boys are doing things behind you, so we're going to do a series on rules of engagement. And the rules of engagement in the third world economy is totally different from first world economy. Good people overrate themselves in a third world economy. They just think that things are going to fall on their laps. No, you need to understand the rules of engagement. So we'll start our series next week. But for today, please, House of Saviours, go to the chat box, make welcome our one and only leader, Fisayo Okunsanya. Fisayo, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, House of Saviours. Good afternoon, Pierre. I'm always excited for this opportunity to share. Good afternoon, Njideka. I see you. Thank you for your spirited welcome. God bless you. Just I forgot to call you when I came to SA, but we will rectify that later. So I want to share today about being limitless. And I was wondering if I could share my screen. I'm going to take this slow, like I like to do, because there's quite a bit to talk about. But I recoined, PF asked me to share on being limitless, and I've recoined this a bit to say that there's no scarcity in this economy. So just follow me and encourage me once in a while. Let me know you're still there by chatting something. You know, this statement itself is quite controversial because economics teaches us, in fact, economics starts with the principle of scarcity, and choice, and then a scale of preference. So the idea is that resources are scarce, and as such, you need to make choices, and then you need to prioritize your choices. I want to teach something that may be a bit different here. And recently, over the last few, I think 2-3 months, I've been sort of relearning and learning some of the things. I've been very quiet, sort of relearning and learning some of the things that God has taken me through. And I've lived this thing I'm about to teach you, and I'll share some examples. And I have lived it. I want to say that you should try as much as possible never to deviate from what you believe, right? Until a superior sort of argument takes out what you believe. But don't subject what you believe to what others believe without taking it through a test. I'm a very strong believer in God, the Word of God, and faith. And everything I do, especially from now, is colored with the faith-based approach. So I'm going to be talking a lot from the Bible. Pardon me. Again, is what I know, but I would say it in such a way that it validates conventional wisdom, right? All right, so let's start. Now, I once heard something from, and one of the reasons I prepared slides is that I don't want to speak from all over the place. I want a structured delivery so that we can understand what it is you've learned. I once heard that Apple treats people on mission-critical assignments differently. And essentially what a mission-critical assignment means is that if you are in the team that's meant to design the iPhone 15, you are not treated the same way by the management of Apple as someone who is just in R&D doing something else. Because the iPhone is the flagship product and is what's going to determine the revenue for the next phase. And so they call you a mission critical asset and they treat you differently. And that's quite interesting. And I want to submit the first submission here, that God treats people on mission critical assignments differently also. And when I say God, I mean even nature rewards people on mission and critical assignments differently. And I want you to view that, because everything we're going to say is going to be in the context of nature or God in nature. So if you're on a mission critical assignment, you are essentially rewarded differently from those who are not on a mission critical assignment. And this is the basis of what I'm going to say. I've said it before at House of Saviours. I will say it again, that people are nature's priority. Write it down, frame it, don't forget it. People are nature's priority. And I'm saying this as a follow-up, that people on mission critical assignments are treated differently from those who are not. Which means that those who are aligned with God's agenda or nature's agenda can never be forsaken. So, and I've said this also, but I'm starting from where I sort of stopped last time I was here, where I said the Bible says in Psalm 37 that I've been young, now old, I have never seen the righteous forsaken or his seed beg bread. It's not something, and we read that wrong, thinking that he says, I've never seen the Christian forsaken. That's not what it doesn't say that. It's not everybody. It says righteous, and that word actually directly reads, I've never seen the aligned forsaken, which means that there's a mission that God has, or a mission that nature has to save as many people as possible, because remember, people are nature's priority. And those who are aligned with that mission can never be forsaken or beg bread. Please just stick with me. I may not excite you like PF can, but just stick with me. Sometimes it makes sense. Those who are on the mission with nature can never be forsaken or beg bread. If you break that statement down, there are two elements in it. And the element is one, righteous, which means alignment with God or alignment with nature. And I think that by far, one of the greatest challenges we have today is misalignment. The fact that we have been socialized by the environment to be misaligned, I think that is one of the greatest challenges we face today. You know, we are born with an abundance mindset. We don't perceive scarcity, and then we are taught about scarcity, and we learn about scarcity. So I think that one of the greatest challenges we have as human beings is we've learned bad behavior, or we've learned things that are not in our normal purview, or that we should never have learned. And so we've learned scarcity, and that is a problem. And that now sets us out of alignment with God or with what God is doing, right? Now, so it says that they can never be forsaken or beg bread. Now, the second element, you know, I said the first element is righteous. The second element is seed, and I want you to pay attention to it very carefully. Seed is not just children. Again, I think it's something that we've read differently. It's not just children, but anything that comes out of you, right? I'm taking this slowly because I want you to pay attention and I want you to get it, right? So if you read it again, it's like saying that I was young and now I'm old. I've never seen those are aligned, forsaken, anything that comes out of them, anything that comes out of them cannot lack supply. Now, think about that in light of a business that you're starting, or capital that you're trying to raise, or whatever it is you're trying to move to the next level of your life. And then juxtapose it with being told that you need to be, that things are scarce. But this is here telling us that everything that comes out of you, as long as it's aligned with nature, can never lack supply. As long as it's aligned with God's order, can never lack supply, right? So my second submission, and I hope you're writing this down because it will build up to something, is that the resources required to start and grow your business have been pre-provided and placed within your reach. Now, I want to unpack that statement. And I think I need to unpack it. I need to unpack it because there's a lot in it. Everything you need to move to the next level of your life is inside of you. And I'm not saying this as a cliche, I'm going to break it down and I'll show you examples. Because God is not wicked. To ask you to go and get something outside of you would be to put undue pressure on you, and that's not the mode of operation of God. So he put it inside of you, right? And the difference and the problem is that you don't know what is inside of you. I know you have heard this before, but I want to say it scientifically so you can grab it. The problem is that you don't know, so you have not met yourself. You don't know who Njideka is. You don't know who, Mary Jane is. You have not met yourself. That's the problem. Because if you read again through Genesis and through the process of creation, you will find that God put the tree, the seed of every fruit inside of the fruit, right? So the capacity for every generation to benefit for the next generation is inside the previous generation. The same way, the capacity for your future is within you. The problem is when you are asked to interpret it, you say it's nothing and you belittle it. And so the first barrier to your limitlessness, in fact, the only barrier to your limitlessness is you. Again, I will show you. So God says, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together in one place. And then he says, let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth. And then the gathering of the water, he called the seas. And the soil was good, right? So that's one thought, the way God created the earth. And then God said, let the earth bring forth grass, herbs, yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding. Fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself. Now, it's not by mistake that it's stated like that. Whose seed is in itself, right? So that's proof that every seed for your next level is inside of you. The finished product in one creative process becomes the raw material in the next. You hear what I said? The finished product in your creative process today is the raw material in the next process tomorrow. This does not speak of continuous improvement, but it also means that the future of every fruit is inside of it. Which means the next time you have an idea, right? And the idea is bugging you and is not allowing you to sleep, and it seems like it's bigger than you. Understand, first of all, that as a principle in life, the first step you need to take, you know it. You just need to discover it. You know it. And it's going to be a step that you can take. Right? Now, let me break this down so that we understand. Because this is how people kill their dreams or get into tormenting relationships or make the wrong step. When God calls you to start a business, everything you need is within your reach. Do not corrupt it, first of all, by speaking to men before you speak to God. Now, so I see people trying to do things all of the time, and they try and do things. And the first thing they say is, who do we know here that can help us get it? Right? The first thing they say is, oh, let's go and meet that person who is in that field that can help us break into that industry. Let me explain something to you. Most of the greatest innovations that will lead to the formation of the newest industries that do not exist will be brought by outsiders. If you go and meet an insider first, you will corrupt that innovation and become disqualified, and you are out of alignment. Do you hear what I'm saying? If you check through history, right from the injector engine that Honda introduced to the wristwatch, right? If you check through history, the greatest industrial innovations were brought about by outsiders. And there's the gift that you bring as an outsider. But here you are now trying to struggle to make yourself an insider by force. But nature remains and tries to keep you an outsider so that you can see beyond the paradigm. And so it gives you this idea of something that's never been done before, and you go and corrupt it by trying to be an insider. You see, the equity of God in your business, right, is a balance sheet item. If you're an accountant here, you may understand what I'm saying. It's a balance sheet item. And that balance sheet item is enough for anything you need in your life. That balance sheet item is limitless. But if you go and meet men before you receive that equity, they will corrupt it. And if you allow them corrupt it, then you are going to limit yourself. I'll show you today, and I'm trying to take it slow because it's bubbling inside me, and I don't want it to be like a fire hydrant so that you can actually use it, right? And I'll give you an example of what I said just now. On the birth of Jesus, the Bible says the birth of Jesus was on this wise, or this is how God brought Jesus into the world, right? And this is how God brings his big people liberating ideas into the world. The Holy Ghost appears to Mary, and he says, you will have a child, blah, blah, blah. And she says, how shall these things be? Then he says, the power of the Most High shall overshadow you, right? And the Spirit of the Lord shall come upon you. And he says, this thing that you are carrying is holy. That word holy in the Greek is the word separated, which means this thing that you are carrying is different. It's separated. Don't mix it with other things that will corrupt it, right? This thing has infinite potential. And if you do not carry it to term on your own in hiding, you are going to corrupt it. If you corrupt it, it will die. And that's Mary understood immediately, ran to go and meet her cousin, and they hid together. In bringing his own idea into the world, God used the womb of a woman so as to honor his word, right? But he refused to allow the sperm of a man to touch it. You understand what I'm saying? So as not to corrupt it. This is not to say you will not need the help of men, but you do not need to get the help of men until there is an anchor in your soul. This is God's approach to business development. This is God's approach to business development. Now, I've talked here about light before, and I'll just do a brief cap because of the next slide I'm going to. I know not everybody will remember, or not everybody was here, but in the beginning, God created heavens and the earth, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So sound created light, right? And then God said, let the light be for days, for seasons, for years, and for time. So light determines time. Now, when you look at that, it means that you can create light with sound. And light in this case is wisdom, knowledge, understanding, intelligence, right? So no matter if you are in a dark place, all you need is light. And you know that darkness is not really anything. Darkness means the absence of light. So if you're in a dark place, all you need is just that light, right? And once you are able to create light, right? Once you're able to create light, then you're out of darkness, really. It's that simple. If you can create light, then you're out of darkness, right? Now, let's assume that you're starting something and you're starting from a place of confusion, and you're starting from a place where you don't know anything, right? And what did I say? I said, no matter how bad you think you're level 0, level -2, the fruit or the seed for the next level is inside of you. I want you to bear that in mind, because that is very, very powerful. The seed is inside of you. I mean, my first assignment to you will be, whatever it is you are contemplating, sit down and ask, where is the seed? The seed is around you. You just can't see it. And that seed will ensure that you retain the equity. But if you go and give it to men right now in its raw form, you might end up losing it or losing ownership of it, right? And you say, oh God, this is not what you promised me. And they say, who sent you? Who sent you to go and give people? So some of you here, you want to do a business and you don't wait to cultivate it with the seed that is inside of you, right? Let me show you something. Abraham was chasing Hagar and Ishmael out of the house. And he gave them bread and water. And they got to a point, bread and water finished. Now, remember I said the fruit of every tree is inside of it. So are the children of every animal on the earth. And animals know this, that their children is inside of them. Human beings too know this, that their children is inside of them, right? It's in your fertilization process. This is God's approach in nature. And I feel there's someone that needs to hear it. This is God's approach in nature. For man, for fruit, for everything. Everything in nature was made to bring forth after its kind. This is God's sustainability plan. You are not left without support. Let's just establish this so that before we start talking about limitlessness and abundance, you are not left without the seed for abundance. The seed for your abundant level is inside of you. You never have to go far away from the place you are to get the seed in your life. The resources and people you need to grow and grow your business are within your reach. The resources are not scarce. The problem is you can't see them. Hello. They are not scarce. The problem is that you cannot see them. Why can you not see them? Because you have filters on your eyes. And your eyes have been filtered by the options that you have. It's blocking your view. Right? Someone says, why does God always come late? It doesn't ever come late. Why does it always come just at the end? It doesn't always come just at the end. The reason it seems like it's at the end is because that's when you have given up and you have no other option. You have explored all your options and you're lost. And you're saying, God, okay, I surrender. Now you have to understand this principle because it will save you a lot of stress. You might have filters that are blocking your view from what God is doing. So they got to the place and the bread and water had finished and they knew they were in the desert. So the next thing to do was to die. Hagar put the boy away and she started to cry. Now, forget the part where it says he heard the voice and all that. But he not showed her a well, right? He showed her a well that was sort of nearby. And then she found water at the well. I have a question. Was the well always there? Or did God just build the well? Can you hear me? Was the well always there? Or did God just build the well? And that's my question. My answer is that the well was always there. But she didn't see it. Some of you need to be looking for the well that's around you instead of acting as if things are scarce. Nothing is scarce. You just cannot see it. Do you hear me? The well was always there. There's a well around you. And that well needs open eyes, and which is where light comes in. Right? Now, let me express it this way to you. Scarcity does not exist. It is a myth. I know, in the light of economics and all that, it's hard to believe in real life. But I'll tell you the truth. And I have lived this so I know that scarcity does not really exist. It is a myth. Scarcity is determined by the extent to which you can see the well. Once you can see it, the idea of scarcity goes out the window, right? It's just a myth. It doesn't really exist. Now, what do I mean? Deuteronomy 8:9 talks about eating in a land where there is without scarceness. A land where you eat bread without scarceness, you will not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron and out of whose hills you dig brass. Have you read scriptures like this and just thought to yourself, no, this place is talking about heaven? No, it's not talking about where we are. Because it's clear. What is here says something different from what you may be experiencing. Right? And the idea that resources are scarce is an old economic term that points to the fact that we must forgo certain opportunities for others. The thinking will limit you. The resources of God in nature are abundant, and his promise to us is that we have access to them. You have to ask yourself, why don't I see that access in my life? Right? Whenever you are considering a business idea, never start by asking how much will it cost, or do we have money to do it? This thinking will stifle how God's supply comes to you, and it will introduce fear on a level that you may not be able to recover from. The two most important questions is what does God say and how will it liberate mankind? If you can key into the agenda of how your business will liberate mankind, it of necessity will draw resources to itself. That is God's equity injection. Now, the reason why you think there's scarcity is that there's something in your mind that you need to reframe, and is your view of abundance. Most of us were raised to view abundance as having excess to the point of wastage, and that's the problem. We were raised to believe that abundance means the money is just sitting in my bank account doing nothing, and that is wastage in this economy, in any economy. We are raised to believe that the money must be gushing out and we must have for everything we want. And until we get to that point, we don't see ourselves as having abundance. The resources of God are enough to meet needs of all its creation. And you must understand that while there is no scarcity in nature, there is efficiency. Right? While there is no scarcity in nature, there is what? Efficiency. And these are terms that must be taught. So God does not waste resources. He's not going to put 7 billion naira just to be sitting in your account. If that's the dream you have been having, then let's change the dream. You may not be ready for this level of abundance. We are not owners of money and other resources. We are merely custodians of them. But the problem with money is that money gives you three powers. One, the power of motion, which means that when you have money, the pipeline between your thoughts, your ideas, and action is very short. But someone said that every man has a voice, money is the volume. You just find yourself moving. Money also gives you the power of choice. If you went to Mercedes today and you told them in Mercedes that I want a pink, baby pink or fuchsia G-Wagon 2023. And they said to you, we don't have that one. And you put another few million on the table. They will come back to you and say, we can give it to you. Money gives you choices that don't exist for common men, right? I think by far the most powerful power of money is the secrecy that it gives you. You can do things and hide them because you have money, right? Because you have money. And so these powers need to be balanced. And these things tend to limit our dependence on God. So the question is, if God gave you the abundance of money in your account, will you still be efficient like him? Right? If God gave you the abundance of everything in nature, would you still be efficient like him? Would you still wait for his voice before you take action? Would you still wait? And this is, I think, by far where you need to start understanding what the Jews meant when they talked about abundance, right? And how it is different from a wasteful culture, right? Now, your wealth is not limited by what is in nature. Please hear me. Your wealth is not limited by what is in nature. If you get everything I'm saying, this is the first part, then everything I will say in the second part will be easier for you. Your wealth, please get this. This is the last slide of the first part. Is not limited by what is in nature. It's limited by your capacity to receive it. Right? So 2 Kings 4:6 talks about the son of a prophet who was in the school of prophets, but he was broke to the point that he left his family in debt. Listen to me, listen to what I'm saying. It says, and it came to pass that when the vessels were, so they went and they told Elisha that the guy was in debt and left his family in debt. So the man of God commanded them to borrow vessels and shut the door. Right? So this is a miraculous atmosphere now. And I'm saying that even when the miraculous is involved, you can still limit yourself. Do you hear what I'm saying? They said when they shut the door, that it came to pass that when the vessels were full, she said unto her sons, bring me yet another vessel. And he said, there is not a vessel, and the oil stopped. Your capacity to receive is limited by the number of vessels you can fill. The oil is programmed to stop once you run out of vessels, because God abhors wastage, right? Now, your capacity to receive is limited by the size of your tribe, because he said, go and meet your neighbors. And this is the problem. The problem here is not that there's no money in the account. The problem here is that we don't love people enough, that our tribe is large enough, that in the day when you need this kind of vessels, there are not enough neighbors to borrow you, and there are not enough vessels. There are not enough people that will benefit. There are not enough people that you can access, because literally you have lived your life on a path of loneliness. And one of the things that provides limit to you is loneliness, solitary. But the Bible says it makes the solitary, puts them in families. The first law of wealth is the law of family, where it says, out of the families of the earth, you have I known. That is why I said the last time, and I say again, that wealth cannot be created. Wealth is passed down between family members. That abundance flows between family members. The problem is that they don't have to be biological family members. So in your journey through life, God has sent some of you siblings and you have stoned them. PF is my sibling now. Straight, ask him how many times we fight. We don't fight. When we disagree, we don't fight. You know why we don't fight? Because we know we're siblings, appointed from heaven. We cannot fight over what? We just, okay, PF. We don't have to agree, but we don't fight. Because any devil that will make us fight, they have not born that devil. We will kill it because we understand. So the man said, go to your neighbors and borrow. Imagine if she didn't have any neighbors. She's finished. Even with the miraculous hand of God waiting to change her life, she had to have neighbors. So you say, oh, I don't have money in my account, is limiting you. It's not the money that's limiting you, it's your attitude and the condition of your soul. So she borrowed those vessels, and as many neighbors as she had, she borrowed. And when her capacity was ended, the Bible says the oil stayed. Then you know the very interesting thing. He now said to her, he said, go and sell the oil and use it to pay the debt for you and your children. Even after the miracle, she needed to know the way to the market. you need to know the route to the market, right? So who are your neighbors? What kind of tribe are you in? That's what's limiting you. It's not really this thing that's limiting you. It's who are your neighbors? What kind of tribe are you in? Do you even have a tribe, or you're just, you say you're a lone ranger? You're going to be poor, a poor lone ranger, living a life full of limits, right? Now, a limitless life is a life that's not afraid of darkness. So there's a gift that darkness brings. Remember that darkness is just the absence of light. So he says, I will give you treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that you may know that I, the Lord that calls you by your name, am God of Israel, right? God does his best work in the dark. And when he was ready to create a woman, he put Adam to sleep. A seed needs to fall to the ground and die before it multiplies. And the night is a cycle that must happen to give way for a new day. Psalm 19 says, day unto day also speech, night unto night showeth knowledge. The purpose of night is for product development. Innovation is born in seasons of darkness. Now, essentially, some of us interpret darkness as, oh, God is punishing you, and God is not Amadioha. It's an African thing, and that's what I keep saying. It's an African thing. Darkness is necessary, and you must embrace it. You must embrace it as a period of learning that shows knowledge. If you run away from it, you would avoid the treasures that are in it. This thing is a big lesson I had to learn on my own. A lot of us avoid darkness so terribly that you truncate what God is about to do because you are so afraid, right? Films, yes, are produced in the darkness. That's the truth. So before you see that beautiful image in your picture, they are produced in the darkness. Now, here, Otumba Shubomi Balogun is the founder of FCMB. Say whatever you want about him. This is what he said when they asked him about FCMB. He started City Securities, and they asked him if he knew that he would have a successful bank. And he said he didn't know. He said it was a shot in the dark, guided by the invisible hands of the Almighty. Because he was going through turbulence at the time, and they were about to pray, and his first son just said, that why don't you start and these were children at the time, start a bank. And you have to understand that it is in darkness that these ideas are born. Don't waste dark seasons. Dark seasons are too precious to waste. Some of you are saying, I've been through so much in 2022, I couldn't even focus. No, it's when you are going through so much that you need to focus. Why? Because your limit, whether or not you are living a life without limits, is not determined by what is in your bank account. And as much as you if you cannot take it away from money, you are always going to interpret seasons where you don't have money, right, as dark seasons. And it's not necessarily true. We have to be mature enough to learn how to navigate all the seasons of our life, right? Learn how to navigate all the seasons of our lives. The necessity of sleep and darkness is inside the creation cycle. Jesus said, except a cord of wheat falls to the ground, and he says, and dies, it abides alone. The purpose of death is for expansion. In fact, when Jesus died and came back, the limits were taken off him. Right? The purpose of death is for expansion. The process that occur in the ground are a mystery. Right? But it's necessary for a Christian journey. God is more interested in what you become than what you get out of the process. And you have to know this. Right? Physical eyes can be a big distraction. So sometimes you have to be put to sleep. For John the Baptist to be born, his father's voice had to be taken because sound creates light. And a man that was actively doubting could not be allowed to have sound, right? To truncate that process. There are certain things that God wants to do in your life that are so systemically important that you cannot be left solely to you. And if you want to be aligned, then he needs to put you in darkness. When he says, as far as the eyes can see, wise people will close their eyes, because this is spirit-to-spirit communication. I hope you are getting something out of this. It is very, very important. The reason I'm teaching this right now is because of the season that we are coming out of and the season that we are going into as an economy and as a country. You are going to need fortitude. You are going to need fortitude. Right? You are going to need fortitude. Now, your light doesn't come from the light of men or from the outside. It shouldn't come. It should come from inside. But that light should come from knowing the seed that is inside. Remember I said that it is what is inside that determines, the future. But when you have not discovered what is inside, then you can never have the light. So if you look at God giving the dimensions of the tabernacle, and I have a small image of it so you can see those Bible scriptures describe it. He said there was no window in the most holy place, right? So there was the holy place and the holiest of all. And he said there was no window there. He said the Shekinah glory of God gave it light. There was no lampstand. That was the holy place. There was no lampstand in the most holy place. He said the only light was the glory above the mercy seat and between the cherubim of gold. Which means God wants you to be in a place at some point where he's the one that's giving you light. Look, this thing, this is a deeper dimension that you can probably only apply if you are going through it. And I pray that you will go through it so you see. Nikola Tesla said God lives here. And look for that material. And when he was describing how he invented all these things, he said the things were literally dictated from some divine source. That inspiration literally just came on him in difficult times because he was persecuted. It's always in difficult times. Because as humans, we tend to coast in seasons of abundance. So Nikola Tesla concluded by saying, God lives here. Look, when you get a business idea, your first inclination is to get in touch with people who can help you interpret it. If you have money, you immediately channel to planning. In order to hide the idea and incubate it properly, God sends you into a season of darkness. This is his mode of operation. If you avoid darkness, you'll be avoiding an authentic betting experience that will change your life and that will take the limits of that business. Shortcuts never work. Shortcuts never work. Right? Now, the Ark of Covenant was made up of two primary materials, and I want you to listen to this also. The first one was shittim, or what we call acacia wood today, and it represented humanity. And the second one was the gold overlay, which represented divinity. So it's like a God-man. To remain faithful to God's agenda, every business you have to be born, must come into the world like Jesus did, through the collaboration of you and God. You must allow God select the resources and the vessels to be part of it. Right? Now, one of the things about darkness is that it can get seriously. I mean, it's easy to talk about it. The easiest part of darkness is to talk about it. It can get painful. It can get shameful. It can get serious. Right? So there's the possibility of wanting to just relief and reprieve just for the time being. Now, if you take that relief, you truncate the idea, right? So the Bible says women received their dead raised to life in Hebrews, and all others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they may obtain better resurrection. Now, do you know what it means not to accept deliverance? It means not to subject yourself to temporary relief, especially from men. So I'll give you an example. Yeah. And I've heard people say this, even people that are not of the Christian faith, people in hip hop say this. that you will see them sitting with billionaires without a dime in their pocket, and they won't beg them for money. Do you hear what I'm saying? Sitting with rich and powerful people and not begging them for money, because they understand that the process that they are going through is a process that needs to be completed. Sometimes things can get so dark that all you can see is the source of darkness. Sometimes you just want relief. And I understand this from a deadline to avoid shame or get a project going. There's a portion of the night that is so dark that it can almost break you. If you persevere and you not accept momentary deliverance, light will break and deliver you. If you don't persevere and you take momentary deliverance, then you go back to the beginning of the class. The child that does not like exam will die in the same class. And life and nature are on a quest to teach you lessons. The characters around your life may change, but until you learn the lesson, the script will remain the same. And imagine going around the same script, right? That's why sometimes God takes the money away from your account. He says, I want to birth a project in your hand, but I want it to be born in a manger. If I give you money, you're going to give birth to it on the island in a massive hotel, but I want it to be born in a manger. So I'll take your money. I'll take your resources. And I'll watch you. I'll watch you trust me. But some of you immediately, once the money is gone, you go and meet a friend and say, borrow me this money. I want to do this project here. I'll give you back after the event. You have truncated it because you are not following and you're not hearing. And there's nothing wrong with borrowing money from friends, but you have to make sure that it's not that you're accepting deliverance. And the reason why you must not accept momentary deliverance is that momentary deliverance is temporary. And while it may meet your immediate needs, it makes you fall short of the faith need, right? So everything you are going through is about teaching you to put your trust in God and not in man. And this thing, people think that it's just, I'm not just talking spiritual principles, so please, it's life principles. That's why if you go back, if I come back with you a little to the coin, right, the quarter in the US, if you look to the right side of the quarter, it says, in God we trust. You know why it says in God we trust? Because it is easy to trust in money and trust in other things. And so the founding fathers of America were saying that even as we are creating money, right, and we are creating currency, that people will come and they will trust in the government, right? So people will trust in the government when they see the currency, that the government is okay and the currency is valid. He said, but we, the government, it is God that we trust in. They knew what they were saying. That money is mammon, can deceive people. But we that we are issuing the money, we are saying as a declaration that it is in God that we trust. This is very important. Everything you are going through is about teaching you to put your trust in God and not in man. As long as you have options to God, you restrict the flow of power in everything you do. If you persevere, you will see his mighty hand. There's a work that God does in the fire that is for your own good. Stop avoiding fire. Everyone who advanced with God got to a point where they had no other option in their mind. Until your commitment is non-negotiable, God cannot work. And this is what we are saying, right? So transition, how do you now move from darkness to light? Transition from darkness to light. So let's take the Israelites passing through the journey, through the wilderness. And they were nomadic people. Some of you are nomads. You are meant to be nomads right now. God is taking you to a place where you are trying to make it where you are permanent. You cannot make it permanent. You cannot make it permanent, right? So as the Israelites moved from darkness to light, Egypt to the promised land, they had to go through the wilderness, and the wilderness is a place of transition. And many times your business may be in transition. Some of you are going into sectors that will thrive that are not existing today. Your future is in a sector that does not exist today, and you're going to be a billionaire and a captain in that sector. But you're too stubborn to let go of what you're doing now. You saw the video that PF was playing earlier. Vanderbilt sold all his ships and moved into rail. Everybody thought he was a madman. You are not an SME, you are not a small business, you are just in transition. Because the thing that you carry is holy, is separated, and is global. Once you achieve alignment with God and you are mission critical, never forget it. It's global. Now, in transition, you will go through a lot, just like the Israelites went through with Pharaoh. But it says, on your way to becoming strong and settling down your light, you will pass through the territories of others. While you pass through their territories, they are not allowed to oppress you, even though they might think they have the power to oppress you. If they try to oppress you, God will discipline them because of your alignment. Again, the other thing is hidden riches in secret places. God made man a co-creator, another speaking spirit, so that man could create everything that God has created. And the seed is the future of the fruit. God hid the future of everything inside the thing itself. Now, listen to me. God hid the future of everything inside the thing itself. While the seed is not valuable in its current process of eating, it is most valuable to the future-oriented process of planning. While the seed is not valuable to the current process of eating, it is valuable to this future process of planning. Listen to me. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing and the honor of kings to search out a matter. Which means that there is no scarcity. God has just hidden it in his natural way. But it is the honor of kings, which is you and me, to look for it. You hear what I'm saying? So while it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, this is God's mode of operation. It is the honor of kings to search out a matter. Many of the industries that will thrive in the next 20 years most likely don't exist today. Many billionaires will stumble upon the value proposition that will make them known to the world. If God allows us to stick to only what our eyes see, then humanity is doomed. So one of the keys to living a limitless life is not to stick to what your eyes can see. It's to open your eyes beyond what your eyes can see. God hides riches from one generation and reveals it to another. One generation finds oil, the next generation must refine it, the third generation must discard it. This is the life of God. This is the life of God. I'll give you this example, and I think I'll just end here. Hidden riches of secret places. Historically, Israel is an external, relies on imports for meeting most of its energy needs, spends an amount equivalent to 5% of its GDP on importing energy. The transportation sector relies mainly on gasoline and diesel fuel, while most of the electricity production is generated using imported coal. As of 2013, Israel was importing about 100 million barrels of oil every year. Israel is a landlocked country with no natural resources and no ports. All Israel's enemies were at war with the country. Israel needs a source of energy to power its economy. Israel drilled so many years and found nothing. However, today, Israel exports natural gas to Jordan and Egypt. There's something inside of you that will deliver you, but you can only discover it in darkness, stumbling on it as it were. Which essentially is to say that, as a recap of what I said, one, the fruit and the tree, the seed for your next level is inside of you. You don't need to go anywhere for it. Sit down and find it. Once you find it, it is the relationships around you that will determine to what extent you can receive the blessing on the capacity. Those relationships will determine how far you go. So watch how you treat people. These are the keys to a life of limit, because limitlessness comes in families. Wealth is transferred through families. right? That in the process of getting this, God has put hidden riches in secret places, and he has put treasures in darkness. Don't avoid darkness, right? You must embrace it, right? So that the cycle comes and the cycle finishes. I think I'd like to stop here, if you allow me. Thank you, PF, and God bless you.
Okay, Fisayo, thank you very much. You have, as usual, caused a lot of problems again. That's something you do, become an expert at creating problems. Then you are like a silent assassin. So if they're looking for the troublemaker now, they will arrest me. They will say, this is the man of God. Let him go. He does not commit sin. It's always been like that all the while. I am the one they think is a troublemaker. Fisayo is the one they think is a man of God. But that is the most dangerous guy, out there. I mean, you've unpacked a lot of things. And I would just like to ask you one or two questions. If you have any question for Fisayo, you can send it directly to me. You know that there is so much going on and a lot of teachings. I was saying to someone yesterday, I say, they tell you about a limitless God, but then they now teach you everything that makes you far away from him, that makes you feel you can't be him, that makes you limited. And it is a contradiction. And people sit with it. And so my conclusion has always been is an identity issue, that until you have a personal revelation of your identity and like I was saying to my wife, that for you to change some things about me now, you need to arrest me, sedate me, perform an operation on me, then remove it from my brain so that when I wake up, I become someone else. If you can't do that, there are some things you can't convince me against, no matter who you are. Now, people struggle with identity crisis. You've told them some critical truth. It's tough to break away from the known. The known has not served, but people are stuck because they are afraid that a known devil is better than unknown. I don't know how the devil can be good. I don't know how the angel can be bad. So people are stuck with the known. How do they break away from this dependency on groups and people that have not served them? Mentors, leaders, that over everything you were promised has not materialized, but people are still stuck. How can people literally break free to trust the power God has placed in them and to trust their God to say, you know what, I'll go headlong. If I perish, I perish. How can they achieve that? You need to unmute, Fisayo.
No, I'm a gentle guy. You're the only one who's always trying to make me, if I avoid something, we ask it in the question. It's all right. I grew up in church boy since I was a teenager. And so that's 20-something years now. The first time I ever did watch night service outside the country was my honeymoon, because I got married on the 28th of December. And thunder did not fire me. Because I had been told, the year will come in, you're not praying the year in. As if that is, and there's nothing wrong with praying the year in. But I'm just saying that it was just, those things were used to ensure that we came to church. They were used to teach us, We started our faith and enterprise classes last month. And one of my assistants came and said, they will come for you, this thing that you're teaching. And I've heard people say that if you teach this thing, people will be liberated and they will go astray. And it's not our call to decide that people will go astray. You understand what I'm saying? That's God's call. You teach the truth. And now, in terms of how people can get free, Your freedom is really in your hands, and you have to start by testing what's inside of you, right? You have to test this thing. It's like juju. Let me tell you the truth. If you don't test it, you cannot know its power. So I was telling my guys in faith and enterprise, because we get a bit very. I was telling them in faith and enterprise class that taking over an industry is not just a competence issue; it's a spiritual issue, right? You have to bring something to the table, and you have to understand spiritual warfare and tactics also, because there are people there, right? Now, spiritual warfare and tactics, for instance, only grows as you test it. That's why the Bible says, exercise yourself unto godliness, or exercise yourself unto God's way of doing things, not unto the way that you are told, right? So there's a way God does this, but you have to exercise yourself unto it. That word exercise is the word gymnasio, and it speaks directly to the gym, which means that liberation and liberating yourself from these things is like a muscle that has atrophied already or is dead, that you have to exercise yourself. If you don't exercise it and take bold decisions, you can't get away from it, right? You have to break away from certain relationships. It's the only way you'll be safe or saved. You have to make the conscious decision to just break away. You have to strive, first of all, as a rule, to break yourself away from every pressure that's undue. Nobody is allowed to exert undue pressure on you, right? Anybody that exerts undue pressure on you, right, is already moving into the realm of manipulation. And manipulation is like the sin of witchcraft, right? So when you see that undue pressure being exerted on you, you draw back. That's the first thing. And those are the laws. Then exercise yourself. Try something. See what is inside you, answer. Once it answers, then it moves. Then you try again. But if you don't, it's gradual, it's in installments. If you don't do it in those installments, you would always be bound. And you'll find yourself hearing things, but your worldview will override it. And if your worldview overrides the truth, then you form what we call a vicious cycle. And if you find yourself in a vicious cycle, then it's hard to get out, right? You need to be you need to train your mind to only accept the truth, right? I was saying something, and someone was saying, "Oh, if a pastor taught," and I'm very, 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 very real about this. So a pastor taught something the last time, and he came and apologized, and I hail him for apologizing. But there's something wrong with teaching the wrong thing, right? You know why there's something wrong with it? And I'm not saying this arrogantly, I'm saying this with a lot of humility. That it means that you are used to teaching culture rather than the truth. And in order for truth to be truth, it must be timeless. Truth is not time bound. So I wanted to release a book I had released in 2013, and someone was asking me, "Don't you want to revise it?" I said, "No." So why? Haven't you grown? I said, I stuck with the word of God the first time. Yes, I know more now. So yeah, but I can put it in another book. But there was nothing that we did that was doctrine or flesh. And people have to admit, just like Paul did, that this one I'm telling you is me, not God. But when you are, Pierre always says that it's the people that we respect the most that can pass error, then you come 10 years later and apologize. But you told me this thing like it was the law of God. I've lived a whole generation without it or with it. And now you're coming, yes, you have apologized, but all my children are angry and bitter. Do you understand? So we need to be very careful. And you need to be very careful so you don't cause a generation to miss out or embrace something that they should not be embraced. So you, as a father or a mother or whatever in the family, your role is to understand it. So I'll give you an example. Power is there, but it's latent until you exercise it, right? So I'm used to speaking to my body parts and commanding them, right? But I learned something recently and it changed the game. And that thing, and I said, he said, but you are gods and you die like them men. So it was always available. I just didn't know. right? And so, PF, what we're going to have, and we need to manage this, is a generation of bitter Christians. Over the next few years, I'm telling you, as this truth starts to filter out, you're going to have a generation of bitter people who said, how come I was in this place for 15 years? And they told me this and it was error. It just was designed to keep me bound. And that's something that you need to check your heart. Because right now, there are many of them that are angry and bitter. Ask them, say at church, I never go to church. I know they go to church again. I don't leave them. And you know what? Everything you told them, they didn't go to church for 6 months. Nothing happened. And their life seems to be improving. And so they are asking, you forced tithing on them, they didn't tithe for 6 months, nothing happened. In fact, their life seems to be improving. Then they now start asking. And so we need to start being very deliberate about this. Deliberate about your own deliverance, your own salvation, right? And seeking knowledge in the right place in an instrumental manner where you can receive it. And so for instance, this platform is wonderful. You know, don't play with it. It's wonderful because it gives you, you know, the depth. Is wonderful. I hope I answered your question, Pierre.
Yes, you answered it. Someone is here listening and is saying, "Oh, but I don't have a degree. I don't because that's another. They tell you you need to take this degree and take that degree and take that degree. So you see people who have so much power, but they have esteem issues because they feel they don't have a degree. So I was saying to someone that the degree I had was accounting, and I didn't work with it one day. You know, so the person was like, "Ah," I said, because I know
my own is urban and regional planning.
You know, and as you mentioned Nicholas Tesla, and I just quickly went and I realized that he started and he dropped out. You know, so people have been told, you know, it is this, if you don't have this, it cannot work. It can. So too many things, and I see it all the time. I see PhD holders who have low self-esteem, you know, they are just confused with so many things. Is there a word that you have for people who feel limited? I mean, I wanted to go study a degree abroad those days when I got in the family life space and I didn't have money. And I said, is this how we're going to be looking at Nigeria to go down? And I went into the field to do a clear research. And the research revealed something, and I created something out of it. You know, but I know that there are people here who are still, you know, it's because I don't have a man. It's because I don't have this certificate. It's because I don't have this degree. You know, it's because, you know, I don't know this person. You know, what is your word for such people?
Okay, thank you. So God said to Abraham, he said, from the place where you are. I always read, you know, the Bible very literally and I take those words seriously. So why would he tell him from the place where you are, right? It means that the place where you are is enough to take you to the next level. He has coded it in such a way that that place where you are is enough. I'm not asking you to get up and go and look for something before I can start. There's nothing you need that you won't get on the way, right? That's what it meant when he said, inside of every tree, he put fruit bearing, right? Fruit bearing, seed bearing, right? So you have the seed for it. I mean, just look at the woman who's with the husband said they were poor and he was a prophet. So hearing God is not even enough. He heard God and led his family to poverty and death and his children to slavery. You have to do something with what you hear, right? Capital is people and structures that you have built around your life. If you don't have a degree, build people, build relationships in people, right? I don't have a degree. I have only a bachelor's degree. People don't believe, you know, even though I teach in business school. My wife is doing a master's now, wrapping up a master's, starting a PhD soon. And her classmates already know that. But they were reporting to one of the lecturers, her husband is strategy coach. The lecturer said, oh, okay, we went to go and research. And they realized that I can be teaching in their school without a degree. Now, the first time I submitted to LBS or EDC that I wanted to lecture, they said, you don't have a master's degree. Now, that door was shut, but I wanted to teach, right? Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again. When a door is shut against you, you don't bombard it. You know, the teaching of bombarding the gates of heaven. I don't even know whether you know where the gate is that you go and bombard it. You cannot bombard it. You outgrow the lock that was closed against you. Emphasize growth over degrees. Just keep growing and water will find its level. Do you hear what I'm saying? Growth over degrees. There are things I do that PF knows that I do today that, you know, I hear people talking about me. In fact, someone was saying, some commissioner was talking about you the other day that, oh boy, outgrow the lock rather than bombard it. Some people have 7 degrees, yet nothing. I know people who have masters, PhD, and they're looking for a job. Do you know? How many people they're looking for a job? Why? Because they've now gotten to a position in the world where they cannot take smaller jobs again. So they're looking for a certain type of job. So you have set yourself up, but you don't have the growth. But if you just stay and you grow yourself and connect yourself with a network where you can impact people, nature would focus resources gradually towards you. But it may not be a job that you need, it may just be capital. It may just be resources, it may just be something, but I think the mindset has to be growth over degrees. You cannot continue growing, right? And that means your capacity. Remember that there are 2 things. Your soul prospers. You prosper as your soul prospers. Your soul is the seat of your intellect and your emotions. Your intellect is the growth in your capacity. Your emotions is the growth and maturity in the way you manage relationships. If you grow those 2 things, you can never be stranded. Your intellect and your emotions, you can never be stranded. You know, but if you now say, oh, I'm degrees, you might end up in trouble. And with a low self-esteem, yet with 3 PhDs. You might need to shine a torch inside your soul to meet yourself and find the seed. Now, let me say this, is not as easy as it sounds. Some people found it at 40, some at 60. Some went through a whole life, did not find it, found it in their second career. The thing that you'll be known for, the thing, right? Just keep looking for it. And one day when you find it, nobody can turn you back. It's like PF found family life. Nobody can turn you back. But you see, this level of awareness that PF has with family life, it's clearer now than it has ever been before. Yeah. It wasn't always, even let me tell you a secret. 7 years ago, even though PF was in family life, it wasn't this clear. It just became clear because light is given in installments. You have to be patient, but you must grow. Just keep growing.
Thank you, Fisayo. One final question. Okay, there's someone in the group is asking, please, how do you grow? I'm asking when you want to teach a child. I've heard that the English, but I want to understand it. Okay, so that's one person. The other thing I want to ask you is, how have developed countries grown themselves without some of the theatrics that we do, you know? And many people, based on awareness and based on what they see, it almost looks like a Black man cannot grow to a certain level. I don't believe that, because I mean, I lead a board full of white people right now in less than 1 year, you know. But is there something about us? Is there something about our continent? Is there something about our beliefs? Is there something about our teachers that has subliminally, I mean, I see people in America still talk about some demons from their father's house, from their mother's house, still. And I'm like, at what point will these demons stop? So what can people, I don't think of my skin, for example. I just see humanity, man-made in God's image. I don't see white, black. How can the people in House of Saviours, how can they step into a space tomorrow and just know that, hey, I am here, right? And I'm going to solve this problem without any barriers of the black man syndrome. Because I have seen the guys here, they don't do all the things they tell us to do, 7 steps, they don't do all these things, yet everything works. It's like they understand the people dimension to things, and they just go in there and God solidifies and blesses them. But we have this entire, after all, these people, they're going to go to hellfire and then we'll take over them and things like. What do our people need to know in this house? Then maybe you can now, someone is asking, how do I grow? That would be my final question.
Fantastic, thank you, Jeff. So I think our socialization, the process of growing up, we were taught the wrong things deliberately. I don't know why. We just passed them down, and we didn't ask questions. We don't allow questions to be asked. Even to today, we are not allowed to question those in authority, and it's one of the failings of our culture. So, as you grow up as a child, you are taught. Some things are said to you that are wrong. Does money grow on trees? And we say it to our children. We say it. We say it. And we send limiting, even self-limiting thoughts. And we install a self-limiting software inside of them. And that software keeps updating. Society now updates it. One of the things I told them in the house when my first son was born was, nobody must intimidate him into subjection, right? He was allowed to interact like an adult, or anyhow he wanted to interact. So if you greet my son today, and he annoys a lot of the Nigerian elders, and you say, Hillel, how are you? You say, I'm good, how are you? One of his aunties almost slapped him. I said, the boy said, I'm good, how are you? How dare he ask? He just felt, she couldn't even know what was wrong with that greeting. He just rubbed out the wrong way that, why is he talking to me like that? No, he's asking, how are you too? You didn't expect him to come back to say that. So my son walks into a place and says, oh, hi. I said, I'm here. Hi. And he expects to lead because his education and his socialization were carefully sequenced, right? From taking a short 6 months learning when he was 3 years old in America, to coming back to Nigeria, to being in the UK for the last 1 year in school. He's stopping the class in the UK now because of that careful curation. Because I know that it's hard to uninstall. It's harder to uninstall software in human beings than install. So we've been through all those things where, I remember the first time I went to Los Angeles. It was my first time in America, so I went to Los Angeles. Because it was my own. The earth is the Lord's now, Abi. So one of my friends called me and said, I called one of my friends, you they call me, this number na LA. Say me where they stay Yankee. I never go LA before. Because we flock to where we are comfortable as human beings. It's just natural. When the Aworis came to Lagos, they all went to Shomolu. It's just natural. And you need to wake up. Consciousness is the first thing. Consciousness to break those things. Why is there imposter syndrome when I enter an international setting? I used to have it before. But now, put me on any international stage, I feel at home, But most of us have an imposture setting that, okay, you are not worthy to earn dollars, you are not enough. Let's keep quiet here. I like when Njideka was saying it, and it's the truth. You know, you're a foreigner here, just respect yourself before they come and carry you. This is not how they behave here. But the earth is the Lord's, and that's such a powerful statement if you understand it, right? So we need to, first of all, again, exercise ourselves into who we are. You see, but a lizard in Nigeria will not become an alligator in the US. And that's what people think. And that's why when they travel, they just expect, no, it doesn't happen overnight. At best, you'll be a well-fed lizard. You need to know that you're a lion here, right? And know it. So I say it again, shine a touch into your soul and meet yourself. So when I enter a room, I carry myself as if, you know, sometimes when I'm going for meetings and they're asking me, only you, I said, well, I said, there'll be like 10 from the client side. I said, it's fine. I will take 10 of them down. That's how I go for my meetings, whether government or whatever meeting, I will take 10 of them down. And usually they like to come in, people like to come in, but I go alone. So you need to know yourself. And it takes self-discovery, it takes a while, but that process needs to be invested in. And that's why I thank God for a platform like this, right? Because you can only receive answers at the level at which you're asking questions. So we need to start asking the right questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Right? Why am I built this way? I'll give you an example, PF. Anytime they say, I have this temperament, my son has this temperament, I tell them, I say his temperament is for the peculiar problems that he's going to solve in his generation. Don't change his temperament. So I tell them my own temperament, my business-like temperament is efficiency for my own generation. It doesn't need to be a zombie of me. Do you understand? It doesn't need to be. But we need to learn how to find out why was I created this way? And then know this is why I'm here. You know, in terms of how do you grow, plants grow by watering it. Right? People grow by water, same thing. And that water is words. You talk to yourself. The word meditate, when you say you shall meditate day and day and night, actually means to say it to yourself. You talk to yourself, right? You answer questions, you ask questions, you make learning a paradigm for you, a life way of doing things. You ask questions. And when you learn something, you act on it so that you don't go and behave the way you were behaving before, right? So you must, that's the only way to grow. You act on it, you do what you are meant to do, always live, and then don't allow yourself to live below the level of understanding that you have before for somebody. A lot of us do it a lot, especially for romantic relationships and spouses. People naturally try to force you to live at their level of understanding, right? Especially people who have influence over you. Don't allow yourself, and this is one of the, I think, the biggest prisons that people live in. You know better. You know what to do, but this person has influence over you. Maybe it's your daddy in the Lord, or it's your wife or your husband, and you live below that level of understanding because they said you should, and because you are afraid that if I move out of this, right? If I move out of this, I'll get in trouble. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this happens a lot with pastors, and you know, but if you don't pay the tithe, they will see that you have not paid it. Or if you don't do this, they will see that. Move out of that and move into a deeper level. Now, let me say this so you don't think I'm against tithing. I'm not. But there's something the Jews do called tzedakah, right? Which is a form of giving that is higher than tithing. And tzedakah is actually a word that means justice. Right? That word means justice. Now, you know why it means justice? Because if you go to Leviticus, it says, when you glean your field, don't take everything.
Yeah.
He said, and don't go back and try and see that you have gone through it again to make sure nothing is left. He said, you must live for the poor, right? The poor and the stranger. Very clear on the category of people. You know why? Because jurisdiction is required to create wealth. So if I come into the US today, right, without papers and all that, I can't even work to create wealth. So I'm a stranger. I don't have no jurisdiction. PF can take care of me and say, stay in my house. Do you know when he does that, he has left part of his field for the stranger, right? Because it's not just money. We need to get out of this thing. Now, the next verse says, do not defraud yourselves, which means that God gives you 100% of resources, and heaven marks it that those 100% is not for you. He gives you the portion of meat for the widows and the strangers who do not have vehicles to receive it from him. He gives you their own portion. Justice is now tzedakah, giving them their own portion. Do you understand what I'm saying? Giving them the right portion that God has is now the tzedakah, is what Jews make sure that they do. And they say that that's the key to securing wealth. That he that borrows, he that gives to the poor, lendeth to God. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when I lock you in a typed message, right, you don't even understand the depth of what giving is. That is bigger than this. That you can be an agent of God on the earth. I lock you in this thing, and you are bringing it to church, and there are poor people in the streets, just like the priest who passed by the guy dying and said, no, he's going to church. Do you understand what I'm saying? These things that we were not taught well, and that's just the truth, right? So, meanwhile, I can be lending to nations. Now, there's nothing wrong with giving to church. The Bible talks about the priests, the orphans, and the widows. Nothing wrong with it. You see, but there's also a dimension of giving to widows. Amazing that you need to be taught. But if I'm only teaching tithing, then I lock you out of those things. Do you understand? It's very deep that we should understand it that way, right?
Yeah. Fisayo, there's a question that was privately sent. My question is, how do you come out from allowing yourself live below your understanding for your spouse? So if you are married to someone who is stifling your potential, you know, maybe you have mismarried, or you have married someone that you have outgrown now, you know, and so if the person, I mean, if it's a pastor, you can change church, you know, but if it's your spouse, how do you deal?
Well, that's Daniel. This question you're asking me is a PF question. Wallahi. I don't know family. I can go and give me the wrong answer. because it's a big problem, especially if you are the woman. If you are the man, you can guide, right? I'll give you an example. God was taking me through a financial lesson recently on trusting him, right? So all my retainerships just cut. Look, they just, as if they did nothing and said, let's take this guy's money away from him. So there was, I had a deadline coming that I needed to pay for in pounds in the UK. And I was believing God, how would this thing? And actively praying about it. And now, because I have understanding, I'm praying, I'm looking for the well. I'm not praying, God, supply money. I'm saying, God, there's a well that you have put around us. Show us this conga. That's what I pray. So, I mean, my wife comes to me and says, you know what? This deadline is here. look, let me borrow X amount from my sister, and you can pay when you get it. Now, that is a valid request, right?
Mm-hmm.
But deep in my spirit, I knew that it would be accepting deliverance. I knew that it would be accepting deliverance. So I said to her, I said, no. She said, but my wife, thank God, she's a beautiful woman, no fights. But I knew she didn't. Why would you? See, this pressure, this thing is coming. I don't want them to start, abroad now. If it's Nigeria, you can see abroad, And I said, no, that this thing is God working something in me, and he needs to work it fully. Just give it time. At least it's not time for the deadline yet. Just wait. Don't be afraid. And in an hour or two, something I had paid for that I forgotten, right? That I didn't need. The refund came in and was much more than that amount. And so I didn't say anything. I just sent her the money. So she came to me. She came upstairs in the house in the UK to me and said, where did you find the money? I said, I told you that life is in a course to teach you lessons, right? If you fail those lessons, especially on this money matter, you might go to the same class. Now, imagine if I was the woman and she was the man. It would have been hard to say you won't borrow. In fact, the man might not discuss it with you. You would have gone to borrow the money. So I will leave that question to PF to answer. How does one handle? It's a valid question that a lot of people are going through, because men who are not as connected as their wives are forcing them to live below, and it can be frustrating. So somebody said, PF, God bless you.
They have not, professionally, they have told us not to answer questions like that until we have full details. So what I'm going to do is to ask the person, let's meet outside of this class, so that we can have that conversation, and we can know there are ways around it, but it's not straight. So there is no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to doing this. So we need to sit down and know what you're dealing with. Who is your spouse? What personality is he? Then can we create a strategy? And every strategy is on the table. Like I said to people, some people have said, I want out. And they've gone out to prosper. Some people have said, I'm going to stay in and I'm going to make it work. They've stayed in and they made it work. So it's not a straight forward answer like that. So I don't want to mislead people so that they will say, praise said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. No. But I would like to have a one-on-one with you so that we can look at what you are dealing with. But lately I've been seeing a lot of women who, or maybe even men, who only God knows what was happening when they took that decision. In fact, I was going to tweet before this meeting on social media that if you are a giant, don't fall in love with a dwarf, because dwarfs may not, even if you pray, dwarfs will not grow heights. They will not grow. There's nothing they will not grow, right? So that's becoming a regular reoccurrence, and we will handle it. So I would like to, maybe when we do family life, we have a month dedicated to family life, we'll all solve all these problems so that we don't, get into trouble. Okay. Thank you very much, Fisayo. Time is, wow. Well, we short our time a little bit again today. So, Njideka, please chase me away from here. Fisayo, thank you very much. Next month is Rules of Engagement. I know you are coming back. I've told you once a month, around the year, we must have you back here. Thank you very much. God bless you.